Dr. Colin Mendelsohn, tobacco treatment clinician, founding chairman of the Australia Tobacco Harm Reduction Association, joined us to explain why this study has important implications for Australia's policy on vaping.
Well, thank you for asking me to comment on this important Australian study, which examined whether quitting smoking with vaping is more effective than quitting without vaping. And this was in a real-world study without support. The study used data from the 2019 National Drug Strategy Household Survey, which is a nationally representative survey conducted every 3 years. And 1,600 smokers were found to have tried to quit in the previous 12 months, which is about half of the smokers questioned. The main findings were that those smokers who tried to quit with vaping were significantly more successful than smokers who hadn't used vaping. The overall quit rate for the vaping smokers was 68% higher than the quit rate for those who hadn't used vaping. The quit rates for those who sourced their nicotine from overseas, which is how most Australians actually get their nicotine, was 124% higher, so more than double the quit rate of those who didn't source nicotine that way. And that suggests that those smokers and vapers are more likely to be using nicotine, and I think that's why that rate is higher. So overall, I think we can say that roughly those smokers who used vaping to quit smoking were twice as likely to succeed, roughly, compared to those who used other methods. And these figures are in line with the population studies we've seen in the US and the UK. The survey also found, interestingly, that vaping was the most popular aid for quitting and reducing smoking in Australia, which is interesting because of the very harsh restrictions on vaping in Australia and the difficulty with accessing vaping products. So in spite of that, smokers are finding ways to vape and are doing so in spite of all the negative messaging they're hearing. The frequency of vaping wasn't mentioned in the study, but we know from other studies that daily vaping produces significantly greater quit rates. So we can be confident that people who vaped daily would have had significantly higher quit rates. The other interesting thing is that the results from those who vaped were actually better than from all the other quit aids. So those who used pills like Champix or bupropion, Zyban, were about 22% more likely to succeed than those who didn't use pills. But all the other methods actually seem to have reduced quit rates. So people who used NRT had a 25% reduction in quitting compared to those who didn't use NRT. Those who saw their doctor had a 12% lower quit rate than those who didn't see their doctor. And those who used quitline had a 50% reduction in quit rates compared to those who didn't use quitline. The highest quit rates were when vaping was combined with a smartphone app like Smoke Free, which is a vape-friendly smartphone app. And the quit rate from smokers who use vaping and an app was 3 times that of smokers who use neither. So there was an interesting side message there. But this study is important because it adds to the evidence that vaping is an effective quitting aid. And in this study in particular shows that it works in a real world environment in the way that most people use it without support. And although a study like this can't prove that vaping caused people to quit smoking, it adds to the evidence base that we have. And when you add all the different types of evidence together, such as this kind of population study, randomized controlled trials, observational studies, the decline in smoking rates in countries where vaping is popular, the user testimonies, when you bring all that together, I think the evidence is now fairly persuasive that vaping is an effective quitting aid.